So I am here today to give you my testimony, but more importantly, hope. When I was growing up in England, my family didn't go to church. My parents would drop me off at Sunday school, but we weren't the type of family to pray. So I wasn't sure about the whole God thing. I didn't read the Bible. I leaned mostly towards the Big Bang Theory. In 1999, I met my wife online. We were the pioneers of online dating. I was her mail-order husband. We chatted over the internet, and in 2003 we were married. In 2005 we were blessed with our son Joshua. Now, my wife believed in God. She prayed and she would read her Bible. She never pressured me into believing. Tracy would tell me that her relationship with God was just that, hers. She would say that she believed that when I was ready to receive God, then it would happen. And boy, was she right. It was Christmas 2009, and I caught a virus. This type of virus can land in your body, causing strep throat, but instead it landed in the lining of my heart. The virus attacked my heart and made it weak, and 5 months later, I suffered my first heart attack. I had a 99% blockage with a blood clot in my heart. A few years later, I suffered another heart attack. I didn't really change my life. I worried more. My job was stressful, and I lived my life the same old routine. My wife always wanted to raise my son in church. She wanted to put him in a Christian-based school. I never argued, because I always believed a happy wife makes a happy life, and I like a happy life and a happy wife. I would have to attend church occasionally because my son would have programs for his school. I started meeting new people and enjoyed going. My wife convinced me into joining the church. So on December the 2nd, 2012, we went to our very first class so that we could become members. Little did we know that 5 days later my life would change forever. I was also having trouble at work and I was so stressed out. I quit my job because I could tell something was wrong with my body, and a bullying boss wasn't much fun either. My wife was upset with me because she couldn't understand how I could quit my job just before Christmas, and we had children. I had gone uptown and started having chest pains. I knew this was bad. I went to my vehicle and called my wife. I told her that this was it, and I wanted her and my son Joshua to know how much I loved him. This was a pain of death. In one single day, just out of the blue, one single breath, and our lives changed forever. My wife called 911 and then called the business in which my car was sitting out in front of, which turned out to be her car, which she couldn't drive because it was a stick shift. Americans need an automatic transmission because they can't count, as it's easier to put a D on the shifter. Joke. She told them I was having a heart attack and she didn't want me to be alone. I remember thinking I was about to die any second. The ambulance showed up and I remember begging them for a nitroglycerine pill. When I arrived at the hospital, I remember seeing all the staff surrounding me and watching the monitors. I was in so much pain. I don't remember my wife coming back to see me. The doctors told her I was in the middle of a massive heart attack. She asked the nurse to give me pain medicine, and the nurse responded by saying they already gave him 7 shots of morphine. My wife's friend was standing at the foot of the bed, and her eyes told me how bad this situation really was, and I could feel it. It was as if her eyes were telling me goodbye. They couldn't life flight me to a bigger hospital because of the weather, so they took me by ambulance. My wife bent down in my ear as they wheeled me away and told me that she loved me and it was time to fight for my life. I closed my eyes and thought this was it. My life was over and that it was my time to die. I don't remember the ambulance ride up. I just remember the hospital. They told my wife that when I reached Mount Carmel, that they would take me straight back to the cath lab. Within minutes of my wife arriving at Mount Carmel, she hears code blue in the cath lab, which usually means someone's about to die or someone's being revived. She knew it was me. A nurse came out and told her that they needed to speak to me in the little room. She knew what they were about to tell her. The doctor came in and said to her that my heart stopped and to prepare for the worst. My heart had stopped for almost 8 minutes. I had died, but God wasn't done with me yet. During the heart cath, I aspirated into my lungs. They were able to revive me. They told my wife that blood had stuck to my heart stent, causing it to collapse. Within hours, the doctor told my wife that they were unable to do anything else for me. He stated the only thing keeping me alive was medicine. He told my wife that I really needed to go to Cleveland Clinic now. Within 24 hours of my heart attack, I was being transported to Cleveland. My mum flew over from England, and my wife and my son and my mum stood vigil over me daily. The second day at Cleveland, my wife got on the computer to sign me up for Social Security. She knew it was bad, plus we had no health insurance. They started lowering the sedation, and 10 days after my heart attack, I began to wake up. I remember seeing my mum and was wondering what she was doing with the biggest purple glasses I'd ever seen. And I remember winking to my son. When they removed the ventilator, the first thing out of my mouth was, "Where's the aeroplane?" My wife began to tell me that I'd suffered a heart attack, but I was getting frustrated that nobody was listening. That night, my wife was sitting at my bedside, and I told her a story that was so hard to comprehend myself. I remember being on an aeroplane, but more like a vessel. I could see no faces, no one's faces. I remember that it was total peace, quiet, tranquility. I could hear these booms, and the person that was next to me, his chest was rising and falling like he was being shocked. People were walking. No, they were gliding. We were all wearing bright white shirts with like a rainbow wash colours on them. I remember that it didn't matter if you were an alcoholic or a drug addict, disabled or fit. We were all in the same place and at peace. I couldn't tell if I was there minutes, hours, days or weeks. It was almost like I was in a holding cell for spirits. We were all being shuffled out to the left and the right. There were people there that were escorting us off the vessel. If you went to the left, your time on earth was over. If you were escorted to the right, you came back to earth. The man escorting me to the right was wearing a green jacket. It felt like I knew him. I was now back on earth and in the hospital room. I was struggling to breathe, and they would put me back on life support to breathe and then take me off. I would breathe fine for a few hours, and then they would put me back on a BiPAP machine. I would get the scariest nightmares while on this machine. And on the 24th of December, my 7-year-old son was looking out the ICU window, thinking Santa wouldn't find us. They brought me this little plastic tree that means the world to us now. I was slowly getting better, and on December the 28th, they moved me to a step-down unit. They stated that we would possibly be released before the new year. But later that night, I took a turn for the worse. They gave me a pill that was good for my heart, but it dropped my blood pressure. They gave me an IV fluid to bring my blood pressure up, but my heart was firing. 2 doctors came in the room that night, and they were telling me that with a blood pressure of 50/28, I shouldn't be awake talking to them. I clearly remember telling them that they needed to excuse me, but I was going to pray, and I didn't care who heard me. I cried out to God, asking him to save my life and to forgive for every wrongdoing that I'd ever done. I asked for everyone that had been in my life to also be forgiven. I prayed like never before. Nobody ever told me how to pray. To someone who has never done it, I must have done something right. God heard my prayer and he answered me. It just goes to show that even in your last moments, it's never too late. God is always with you. That night, the doctors inserted a balloon pump in my heart. The moment that I had my heart attack, my wife went to social media and asked for prayers. A Facebook site was created for me, and within days I had over 800 prayer warriors following my story. My wife needed to call on them. I now had a balloon pump in my heart, and I was back on the ventilator. The fluids they gave me to bring up my blood pressure had now filled my burnt lungs and my heart, and it was so weak to push away the fluid that my heart was giving up. On December the 31st at 7 a.m, the doctor came in and told my wife and my mum that I wouldn't make it through the day. My brother and his wife made arrangements to come to the States, and my wife's family all came up to say goodbye and to support Tracy and Josh. My wife would tell you that she knew that God would not take me. It could have been denial, but she chooses to believe it was God's peace. By midnight, I was awake on a ventilator with a New Year's Eve hat and a 2013 glasses on. From there we waited. The heart team needed to decide what they wanted to do, to give me a transplant or an electric heart, or to make me comfortable until I died. We had no health insurance, and the cost for an electric or a heart transplant would be very costly. Day after day we waited. I was on a ventilator but couldn't be sedated because of my blood pressure. The only communication was by a clipboard. My brother and his wife finally arrived from England. They took the ventilator out within an hour of his arrival. I was able to speak to him and tell everyone how much I loved them. But a few hours later I went into an AFib and couldn't breathe again, so back on the ventilator I went. It was now January and the weather was brutal. My brother and his wife Amanda could stay only a few days because of work. They were to fly back, and they came early that day to visit me. They had no clue what my fate would be when they got back on the plane. As it was time to leave, my brother put his jacket on, and I panicked. I couldn't speak because of the ventilator down my throat. I knew that jacket didn't belong to my brother, and I wrote on the paper, "Whose jacket is that?" Normally you ask someone, "That's a nice jacket, where did you get it?" But I wrote, "Whose jacket is that?" It was the same jacket the man wore on the vessel that escorted me to Earth. My brother told me it was Gary's jacket. Gary died of a heart attack back in 2011. Gary was my brother's brother-in-law. I think that was validation for everyone in the room. On January the 8th, the heart surgeon came in and told us that the next day they were going to put the electric LVAD inside me. He told us that he had made $20 monthly payment arrangements for us. He also told us that if we couldn't make the payments, that he would make them for us. I had my heart attack December the 7th and didn't return home until February the 8th. My son and my wife stayed with me the whole time and never came home. It was a celebration. God is working in me daily. My wife tells me that I was a good man before my heart attack, but now I'm a great man. I see beauty in everything and everyone. A tombstone has dates, one for your birth and one for your death. There is always a small dash in between, and really that's how long our lives really are. Life is short. James 4:14. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Ask yourself this: during that little dash, did you do something great? Did you make a difference? Did you help anyone? Did you inspire anyone? I am blessed to be here. I now run on electric all times. I plug myself into a wall socket at home and I'm battery operated while I'm out. I am a man before you that has no blood pressure or pulse. My life is not easy and I'm now on a heart transplant list. I know God will make my crooked road straight. I am redeemed. I just want to remind you that it's never too late. Even when you have minutes to live, rely upon God because He is always with you. Never give up hope. Never give up on miracles. Even when the best doctors tell you there's no hope, always believe. Only God has the last say. I just want to inspire people and hear them say, because of you, I never gave up hope. Luke 1:37, faith. It doesn't make things easy, it makes them possible. We found a few days before I was released from hospital that my social security went through. I was in ICU for 2 months and they put an electric heart inside me. The bill was close to $1 million. The hospital bill was 100% paid. My son attends a private school, which we got a scholarship for. With money being tight every month, we find ways of paying our bills because of God. God has provided everything for us and everything we need. We are richer than we've ever been because of God. We're not rich in money, we're rich in love. Whatever you may be going through, remember, God is in control. Rely and trust in Him. Thank you for coming, everybody, and listening to me. God bless you all.